Hey everyone, off the Mike Sports Network, back here after a little bit of a hiatus. I was traveling over the last week or so. I get back, obviously the election happened. I'm not going to go way down the road of that. This is the Off the Mike Sports Network. We're not the Off the Mike Politics Network. You guys don't need to hear my opinion about what happened. Like I said, that's for debate, not on this channel. But I wanted to come back here with, honest to God, one of the great stories in the NBA, and one of the great stories actually in all of sports. We got the NFL season knee deep. We're in college football, and the NBA has just kind of quietly started their season. And yeah, we're gonna do it. It's Cavs Thoughts, the debut edition, because the Cleveland Cavaliers are 9-0, the lone undefeated team left in the NBA. Despite not making any significant changes to their roster. There was rumors that they trade Darius Garland. There was rumors they were going to trade Jared Allen. There was rumors Donovan Mitchell was going to leave. None of those things happened. The one significant move they made was not a player related. It was at coach, because J.B. Bickerstaff had reached his ceiling as Cavs head coach, and Kenny Atkinson, who was pretty much unceremoniously run out of Brooklyn because of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I don't know if it was they didn't want to play for him or they wanted a more accomplished coach, which is ironic because they went and got Steve Nash, who had no experience whatsoever. But Kenny Atkinson, who the Cavs hired, got experience with the Warriors. And look what's happened. The difference in this Cleveland Cavaliers team is night and day from what they were last season. They were a slower paced, less possessions type team. They are now much more fast paced. They lead the NBA in scoring at 123 a game. Field goal percentage up at 46%. They're making 15 threes a game. They're shooting 36 of them. I'm actually looking at some of these numbers here where the difference in three-point shooting, like the Cavs are a much more efficient shooting three-point team than the Boston Celtics, the defending NBA champions who just lost their first game of the season. The Celtics average 51 three-point attempts per game. 51. The Cavs average 15 less. And yes, they make, the Celtics are leading the NBA with 19 made threes a game, but this is the type of offense that you need to play to be successful. And with a young roster like the Cavs have, with Jared Allen in his mid-20s, Donovan Mitchell in his mid-20s, Darius Garland in his early 20s, Max Strus hasn't played this year. He injured himself in camp. You've just been able to mold this roster. Sam Merrill's making a bunch of shots. This team is a lot of fun, and they've been able to grind out some wins. This isn't, for anybody thinking that this is some sort of cheap story that's not going to last and this isn't sustainable. I can't even talk. This team is for real because they're balanced. They've got 5 guys that score in double figures. Ty Jerome is quietly averaging 9.6 a game. Karis LeVert doing very well, hasn't started a game this year. And yeah, like I said, they haven't had the services of Max Strus at all this season. But yeah, Donovan Mitchell, not a prolific type scoring season for him. He's only got averaging about 24 points a game. Darius Garland seems to be whatever happened to him in the last couple of seasons has really kind of molded into form. Evan Mobley looks like what we thought he could be. But yeah, back to what I was saying is with all these stats that have been going, it's not they've been able to win games in different kinds of ways. They won a couple of slugfests with Milwaukee. Milwaukee's been really disappointing, but hey, one of those games was with Giannis and Donovan Mitchell hits one at the buzzer. Then the next game, Damian Lillard goes crazy and the Cavs have to muster up coming back from about 6 or 7 down in the last 2 or 3 minutes of that game to win. And then they've been able to just overwhelm teams with their fast pace, with their ability to share the ball. They're really good defensively. I never thought that just one singular move at head coach would change this team to the level that it has changed the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is a legitimate NBA championship contender. It's 9 games, I understand that, but you can already see the tangible differences from a team that made it to the conference semifinals. And, in a 5-game series against seemingly being overmatched by the Boston Celtics, This Cavs team is still incredibly talented. And I'm not trying to, piss all over JB Bickerstaff. JB Bickerstaff's going to do fine in Detroit. It's just he is the kind of coach that you try to start something up with. And the Cavs, where they were when John Beilein left them around COVID, because that was a failed experiment, JB Bickerstaff stepped in and was able to mold this team into something to the point where they were able to go out and get a Donovan Mitchell, a superstar like that, and come into this culture and really elevate them and get them to the playoffs. They went from the play-in, they got to the playoffs, they then won a series last year, and then they're in the conference semifinals. This is a legitimate title contender now. And Kenny Atkinson with we already knew he was a pretty damn good coach for what he did with limited resources in Brooklyn, and then he was unceremoniously shown the door for whatever reason because Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving wanted to play for somebody that they kind of aligned with, and that wasn't Kenny Atkinson. And then Kenny Atkinson goes with Steve Kerr, who's been one of the best coaches in the NBA the last decade, and learns from him, learns some stuff internationally, coaching with the French national team. Kenny Atkinson has been on people's radar for a long time. And so for the Cavs to lock him up and get him to be their head coach, and then you see through 9 games of the season, 5 guys in double figures, almost 6. Their pace is up. They're leading the NBA in scoring. They're winning tough games. They're outscoring people. They scored 130 points the other night against New Orleans. Who is this team? This team was struggling mightily offensively because of just the way that their roster was structured, the way that they coached. And it's just this is the evolution of this roster. And what's going to be fun to monitor during this season is how do they do against the upper tier teams of the NBA? Because Milwaukee is considered an upper tier team, but it's clear that something's going on there. Because now it gets really interesting for the Cavs because their schedule coming up here in the early stages of November here. They play at home against Golden State. Golden State's lost 1 game this year. The reshuffling of that roster is a story early on in the NBA season. They then play Brooklyn. They're then at Chicago. Then they're at Philadelphia. Who's to say that Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey's probably not going to be involved in that? But you're looking at some of these games, their first really immense test outside of that Golden State game and maybe that Philadelphia game, depending on who's playing. They're at Boston on November 19th. That's where we're going to really find out how this team really stacks up against bigger type teams. Golden State's obviously one of those upper echelon teams. You'll obviously have Dallas later in the season, Denver, Minnesota, the Western Conference side. They've already played the Lakers, and there was a nice moment when LeBron and Bronny played there, and Bronny's got his first points in the NBA coming into Cleveland. Unfortunately they beat Orlando, and Orlando did not have Paolo Banchero, so that's another thing that they need to visit. But this is, like I said, this team has not had a game this season where they haven't scored more than 110 points. Just think about that for a second. Their lowest total of the season was when they went to Madison Square Garden, played the New York Knicks, and won 110-104. Every other game this season, they had more than 110 points. This was one of the lowest tier. I'll even pull up their stats from a year ago. They were bottom tier in the NBA, 112 points. They're averaging almost 10 points more per game through 9 games this season. That just goes to show you the importance of coaching and the importance of, hey, you don't need to, throw everything away, make a bunch of big trades to reshuffle your roster. Sometimes it is coaching. And I'm not here to say that JB Bickerstaff was a bad coach by any stretch of the imagination. This guy really helped, revitalize this Cavs organization post-LeBron. But it's weird that I'm going to say this because this is not an insult in all due respect to JB Bickerstaff. He was a bad coach for this team at this stage because you got a young rising superstar, a guy who's near the top tier in the NBA, and Donovan Mitchell. They just didn't coexist. Darius Garland, they were having issues working together offensively, and they weren't scoring points. They were struggling in spots offensively. and you bring in a guy who knows offense like Kenny Atkinson, a very accomplished assistant coach in the NBA, was in Golden State very recently, won a championship there, and you're seeing early on that this is paying big time dividends. Like, this Cavs team is for real, people. They are for real, and everybody's going to anoint the Boston Celtics as the clear favorite. They are, and there are other teams across the NBA that you. But I implore y'all to watch the Cavs the rest of this season, because this is a real team, and they don't even have Max Strus, who's played in the NBA Finals before, who's a very good offensive player. He hasn't even played yet for Kenny Atkinson yet. Sky's the limit for this team, so it's scary. So just wanted to point that out to y'all. Keep your eyes peeled on this. We're going to obviously have a lot of Cavs thoughts here, because now baseball season over. Unfortunately, Guards thoughts only lasted a little while. Browns thoughts will be around, but it feels like that team's going into the tank. So yeah, it's going to be fun to watch this NBA season. Even though a lot of people aren't watching, they should be watching, because there are some good teams across the NBA outside of, the NBA champions in the Celtics. So, and as I always say, or as Stewie Griffin once said, bad idea trusting the Celtics. I'll leave you with that. All right. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. We'll have more content. I know it's slowed down a little bit with a lot of things going on in the last week. But, yeah, we'll have a lot of great stuff coming up here throughout the rest of the week and over the weekend. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.